Hype Network presents.
On this episode of Season 4, Let's Talk.
One city that I found was very supportive and probably one of the best gigs that I've ever played with was when we played in Davao. The crowd there was so hot. The crowd there was so supportive. I don't even think they knew us that much. I think they were there for the headliners. It's a legendary heavy metal band called Dahong Palay. We were part of the support bands, but they had, man, I tell you, they were so supportive. They really enjoyed not only our sets but the sets of others as well.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy, and this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Before we get into this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to whichever platform you are using. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show, and my guest today is also a podcaster, and I'd love to have a conversation with this guy because when I reached out to him, I just said, hey pal, we need to have a conversation, and he said yes, and here we are. I'm going to introduce my guest, Joal Eduarte. Hey pal, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, pal. I'm just staying productive, just to keep alive.
Yeah, of course, man. Hey, I really appreciate the intro. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. I wasn't expecting that kind of an intro, and and yeah, thank you, man. I'm really glad to be here.
So before we get into our conversation, could you give a little bit background about yourself, pal?
Okay, well, you've introduced my name already. So yes, I am a podcaster too. I have a podcast focusing on Filipino bands, Filipino heavy metal bands called Buhay Banda Diaries. So in English, it means, a diaries of the band life, right? So there I interview various musicians within the local heavy metal scene. So so that, and then
Interesting.
I'm also working for True Digital Philippines. Right now, that is my full-time job. So it's a digital company. So we produce various digital content. I'm also running a business on the side focused on screenwriting. It's called Newbie Screenwriters. So you can check that out. I'll plug the rest of it later. But so I'm handling I'm wearing different hats, but I love it. I love the creative process. I love, being busy, keeping myself productive. So yeah, and I also so again, I'm also a musician. I play for 3 bands, all heavy metal, just different subgenres or different styles. For 2 bands, I play the drums, and for the other one, I play the bass guitar. And so what else? Yeah, I guess that's it.
Oh man, you just opened up a topic that we gotta discuss. So before
Yeah,
we
because I know
get
you're a
into
musician
music,
too, right? So yeah.
that's interesting. This is cool.
Yeah,
Before we
yeah.
dive into the music side of things, I mean, you've opened up music and entrepreneurship. I want to talk to you about
Mm-hmm.
that as well. We'll cover that as we head
Mm-hmm.
into the conversation. But before we get into the madness, I'm already excited. um, if you and I were classmates in high school, who were you in high
Uh-huh.
school? Are you the you mentioned music? Are you the same from before with the guitar in hand and everything, or the jock, or into the books or anything that stuff, or into chicks? Who were you in high school if you and I were classmates?
You know what, man? When I was in high school, I was actually the dead kid. If you're familiar with the term, like I wasn't part of the cool group. I wasn't part of I wasn't good with girls at the time. I was interested into music already by that time. I was already interested in the genre that I play with, and when I was in high school, I that's when I started to get my feet wet on the band scene, on playing gigs and performing and writing music, you know. But when I was in high school, uh, maybe to put it in quicker terms, I was a vastly different person from who than I am today, you know. So I was a dead kid. I didn't know too much about the world. I was focused on my studies. I didn't get it good with the girls. That part came in later, but sometimes I consider myself a late bloomer. So yeah, I guess if you're gonna have me describe who I was when I was in high school, yeah, I was basically a I won't say I was a nobody because I had friends from high school. I just wasn't part of the cool group. You know what I'm saying. So yeah,
If you were to classify yourself, are you introvert, extrovert, ambivert? What vert are you?
I
Well,
was
for
an
sure you're not
introvert. I was
inverted.
100. No, no. But I was 100% introvert during that time. Maybe even 120% introvert. Yeah. So I was the type of guy. I mean, right now sometimes I still am. But back in high school, I was definitely the guy who would not start a conversation. Like if you wanted to have a conversation with me, I'm more comfortable with someone else approaching me than I approaching them. So I was shy. I was a shy type.
Hmm. When did the when did when I noticed that the thought that I had in my head, of course, being an introverted person is that I'm not classifying anyone here as
Mm-hmm.
is that when you're introverted, you're on your own
Yeah.
space, your own
Right.
time continuum, and looking at the fact that you do a podcast and you interview bands, where's that moment where you transition from being an introverted to an extroverted personality where you decided, okay, forget about this. I want to be me. I want to be my own personality, you know?
Um, I guess there was a point when I was in college that I just said to myself, no, this introvert thing isn't working. I have nothing against introverts. I still consider myself an introvert, right? But I just figured that when you talk to people, when you actually reach out to people, they're actually better than how you initially perceive them to be. Sometimes there's that kind of thought, right? And I guess the turning point for me was not in high school. I think it was more in college. Although when I reached college, I was less of an introvert. I had more friends. In fact, some people would say that high school was the highlight of their teenage years, or yeah, their younger years. Mine was in college because that was the time when I had more friends. I was able to grow more, I guess. Well, not as much as I did later on in life or the past few years, but I guess. Well, I had this bandmate, one of my earlier bands when I was in college, and the guy just oozed confidence. The guy just oozed, he was very sociable. He made it fun to be around, and I was like, why don't I apply that to myself? Why don't I kind of emulate that? Because it it felt good for him. It might feel good for me. So I that's when I started shedding the introvertedness and the angstiness that I had during my high school years. I wasn't able to shed completely the angstiness until much later. But I think that was the turning point for me when I started going. You know what? Why don't I just talk to people and have fun and not take everything too seriously, not enclose myself too much in my own world, and just socialize. Because it's at that time all I was thinking was, no, it's fun. It feels good. It feels good to talk to people. So yeah.
Interesting. I love it. Now, of course, I'm not gonna barrier this because we gotta talk about this. the elephant in the room, and that is music.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna go there because that's how the
Okay.
conversation
Yeah, let's
began.
get into
That's
it.
how I wanna unbox this.
Mm-hmm.
First question in my mind
Yeah.
is, who are your top three bands? You know, I gotta ask. It
Wow.
doesn't matter what
Okay.
genre
So
it is. You can go from any genre that you can choose. Who is your top three? Just let me know.
oh my god, that's quite difficult because personally as a music guy, I'm really fond of multiple genres of music, multiple styles. Okay, maybe top three that pops into my head just right now. Beatles,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Metallica,
Huh.
and Slayer.
Nice.
So those bands, those three are so far apart, right? Or at least the Beatles are so far apart
Yeah.
from Metallica and Slayer. But
They're very
I have
far
a lot
away.
of favorite bands, but like
It's
11,
very
like 11,
far.
right? I mean, so
I mean, it's so
right,
far
right.
away.
So yeah, I guess yeah, I'll go with those three. But there's so many more. But yeah, I'll go with those three.
That's interesting because if you think about it as a step, we're walking up the stairs and every step has its own levels.
Mm-hmm.
When you said Beatles and Metallica, it's very far off. You have to extend your leg, it's
right.
very far. You have
It's
to
a
leap
it's a
and
huge
jump,
jump. It's
it's
a
very
huge
far.
jump, right?
Yeah, I do agree. And from Metallica to Slayer, it's a normal, normal step. So,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. I really find it interesting. And for me, coming from a musician, the interesting thing that popped into my head was the holy trinity of heavy metal. And I think I had a conversation with
uh,
my dad when we spoke about this, and I'm sure you heard about this band called Black
of
Sabbath
course, Black
and
Sabbath, Ozzy,
Ozzy and
Ayomi,
Geezer, Iomi. Yeah,
Georgia.
these guys, man, these guys are crazies. The stories that they've gone through is like so phenomenal. If you guys haven't heard about the episode with my dad's conversation, go check it out. So the main point is, during my lost years, I'm sure you've heard about my story in India and my season 2. During my
uh,
lost years, I spent a lot of time, comics, music, drawing. I've been stuck up in my own world.
mhm,
I can't really classify myself as an
mhm,
introvert because I'm more like a chameleon when it comes to life. I mean, I'm not the guy who is found in the crowd. If I were to paint myself as a picture, I've mentioned this before in countless collaboration, is that I am the guy who's walking in the middle of a heavy snow while peeping into other houses where
mhm,
I look at everything, I look at communities and people come together. And that's what makes my life interesting. And coming back to the conversation
mhm,
is that um and coming back to my love for the Holy Trinity, the British Invasion, Black Sabbath, um, Deep
mhm.
Purple, Richie Blackmore. I'm a huge Richie Blackmore fan,
Yes,
and uh,
same here.
Led Zeppelin. Robert Plant, Jimmy Page,
Mhm.
Bonham. All these guys.
Robert
Um,
Plant is one of the greatest vocalists of all
yes,
time.
yes, he is the
Let's just put it
true. I
out
do
there, right?
agree. He's the golden god
Right?
of rock and roll, and the fact that he's still alive and he's making music, and he
Yes.
is, and yeah, I mean, oof. Yeah. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about you and the band scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to know what the band scenes over there is all about. So yeah,
Well,
I hope it's gonna be spoiler free territory when it comes to the podcast.
yeah, yeah, it's no worries. But you know, personally, I've been in the band scene for quite a while. But see, there's multiple scenes when
Uh-huh.
it comes to the local music, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
personally, I consider myself part of the local heavy metal scene. But you
interesting.
also have the punk scene. You also have the reggae scene. There's a festival called oh my god, what was that festival? oh my god. I forgot what that festival was, but it had multiple stages. You had the stage that caters to fans of the loud bands,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
had a stage that
Interesting.
caters to indie bands, You had a stage that caters to reggae and to other ska and reggae.
Hmm.
So there's multiple scenes, but I
Mm.
think that despite that, bands share a mutual respect for each other.
Mm.
I do,
Mm.
right? I think that if you're gonna be a musician, it's imperative that you learn to appreciate other styles of music too. Because if you're gonna be a musician, it's I think it's also an extension of your creativity
Mm.
if you draw in influences from other genres. Like for
Mm.
example,
Mm.
okay, I'm a heavy metal guy. I'm a heavy metal drummer,
Yeah.
but I don't just draw from heavy metal drumming.
Oh.
I mean, there are songs that I've performed in that I've played drums for that I would say I did not. There, I played drum parts that were not taken from the heavy metal genre.
Hmm.
And I think that's what makes it interesting for me as a drummer because I get to play around and get to explore other genres,
Hmm.
and then incorporate it into my own style, into my band style, and come up with something fresh.
Interesting.
So anyway, I think I digressed a bit, but my experience in the band scene, um, it has its ups and downs.
Hmm.
I think anyone who's been in the band scene, there has been ups and downs with my band. Thankfully, I have never experienced a clash with other bands because I would not want that.
Huh.
I tend to avoid conflict as much as possible. I'm more of a pacifist. So, but it's been good. I'm glad to have connected with my bandmates, and I'm glad that I have had the opportunity to play not only around Metro Manila but outside Metro Manila. I've played gigs in Bicol. I've played
Wow.
gigs in Iloilo, in Davao. Yes. So,
How about
um,
Baguio?
as a musician, no. I have visited Baguio a few times, but as a tourist.
Interesting.
So, when me and my family went there for a vacation, but I haven't played in Baguio yet. I have heard though that the scene in Baguio is very supportive.
Yeah.
And speaking of supportive, one city that I found was very supportive, and probably one of the best gigs that I've ever played with was when we played in Davao.
Nice.
The crowd there was so hot. The crowd there was so supportive. I don't even think they knew us that much. I think they
Interesting.
were there for the headliners. It's a legendary heavy metal band called Dahong
Hmm.
Palay. We were
Hmm.
part of the support bands, but they
Hmm.
had, man, I tell you, they were so supportive. They really enjoyed not only our sets
Huh.
but the sets of others as well. Because when you come here to Manila, and I'm not blaming any part of the audience.
Hmm.
It's just the way it is. But sometimes when you don't know the band, have you experienced this? When you don't know the band, you can expect only a few people to show up
Yeah.
if you're not that known,
Yeah.
right? In Davao, it didn't matter if you were that known, as long as you played there.
Huh.
You played there with passion. You played there with heart, and you made great music. It doesn't matter. The style of, I won't say the style, but the attitude of the fans over there, the music community over there is just full on support.
Mm.
And if we don't know this band, hey, this is a great chance to get to know this band. I'm
Mm.
gonna watch it, and then, hey, if it sticks to my ears, then great, right? So
Mm.
I love that attitude, and it showed in how they welcomed us.
Mm.
They were very receptive, and I really enjoyed that experience, that gig in Davao. Yeah.
That's interesting. It's pretty cool. It's funny. I have a short
Uh,
story to tell.
uh,
Um, this was during my lost years I mentioned
mm-hmm.
earlier, and this was a jam session with my dad, and he and I had a band called Greenwich Reflection, and
Okay.
which we were a reggae band, and
Okay.
there was this particular gig, and there was a specific set of months I remember that I had like another gig and
Mm-hmm.
another gig and another consecutively within the span of 3 months, and it was continuous gigs, and it was energizing,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and and the gig with my dad was one of that fun part because it was one of the fun parts during that event because because one of my dad's best friend happened to not show up. I think he was out of town, so I had to substitute as a rhythm guitar.
Uh-huh.
And during this gig, it was funny how much fun we had, because the moment we went into stage, and I remember this specifically, is that my dad had his bass set up and I had my setup piano and everything. And so my dad's bass was so far up the other side of the stage, and then there
Mhm.
was some guys who were dancing, and they were dancing in the corner, and one man approached my dad and said, "Sir, could you play Bob Marley?" And my dad didn't understand,
Uh-huh.
so my dad said, "What?" And then during the entire gig, my dad announced, this guy said, and then that's what we do. We are Green Reflection, and he connected it into an introduction, and we had fun. It was a
Uh-huh.
really cool experience. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but if I have that video, it's somewhere on Facebook somewhere there. And it was an amazing experience. We had fun, and that was an amazing thing. And the crowd, they really loved it. It was an amazing crowd. As I mentioned, the crowd that was next to my dad, these guys
Mhm.
were just dancing, and even though it was fast, slow, it didn't
Uh-huh.
matter what the tempo
They were
was.
receptive.
These
They
guys
enjoyed it.
really were
Uh-huh.
dancing. They were having fun, and our first set was, I think, jamming or
Uh-huh.
something, and it was
Great choice.
upbeat. So
Yeah.
and man, it was really. I have a feeling the video is somewhere. Yeah, I don't remember what the video is, but yeah, it's in my personal account. But yeah, yeah. But the guy who took the video panned towards that video. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun. It was fun. Yeah, that's one
And
thing.
when you see that, right? When
Mm.
you see that, it energizes you, right?
Yeah,
It
true,
motivates
true.
you to
I
play
agree.
more, right?
Yep, yep,
Because that gives you the adrenaline to, what, our music is affecting them. Then let's play better. Let's play more. Let's give it our all. And I think that's what happened to your performance that
yep.
time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that that I do agree.
Right.
In a way, yeah, I do agree, because the feeling is amazing. But let's get into your storytelling here. I gotta
Mm-hmm.
ask you. I do not know if you've had collaborators who've asked you this. What is your craziest experience that you've ever had that you haven't shared with any podcast collaboration or any of that stuff anywhere else? I gotta know. As a musician, I'm sure you had a fair share of crazy moments.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, crazy moments. Here's the thing. Usually when people associate you with a band,
Huh.
they always go like, so you must have a lot of women. You must have passed out drunk sometime, or must have done this, you must have done that, you must have smoked weed.
Huh.
Yeah. There are certain preconceived notions about how a band member should behave, and it's not necessarily on the brighter side of things, right?
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough, and I have to say, I'm actually proud that I don't subscribe to that. I have drunk, okay, so I've been drunk before,
Mm.
but I haven't gotten into fights. I haven't gotten into the usual crazy stuff that people associate with the band life.
Huh.
What's my worst experience? Oh man, it's pretty tough to recall. I guess there was a time. I guess the worst experience that I've had as a player, as a band member, was, from what I can recall, one of my bandmates was drunk.
Huh.
And okay, so we were about to hit the stage. He was drunk. He was drunk as hell. We had to play. And when we were playing, I think there was a song in the middle of our set when his amp, when his amplifier then wasn't working. So he just totally shut off, right? So he wasn't playing, right? So we were in the middle of a song. We had to finish the song without him
Mm.
sounding good,
Oh
right?
man.
And that's trouble, right? That's trouble.
Yeah.
Now you add alcohol to that, and what happened was I think he threw a tantrum on stage,
Huh.
wherein he threw a drunk tantrum on stage. He picked up the mic and he said something like, I forgot the words, but he basically threw a tantrum towards the administrator of the bar for having such a crappy equipment,
Huh.
something like that. I forgot the exact words. And then he just went down the stage,
Huh.
and we were like, dude, get back up. We have one last song, and he was like, nah, hindi na, sige, kayo na lang, you know. And what the hell, you know, that was what I was thinking of. What the hell is this, right? So it took some time before we were able to convince him, hey, get your ass back up here. We have
Huh.
one more song. So thankfully he did. He was
But that was like what, midway?
no, not mid song. After a song, but we had one last song after. So thankfully, his amp broke down mid song.
Huh.
So after that song, which was the second to the last song, that's when he threw the tantrum. And
Whoa,
then he
man.
went down the stage. I'm like, what the hell is this? Get your ass back up here. We still have a set. We have to complete the set. Thankfully, he did. We did complete the set, but again, during that song, his amp broke down again.
Huh.
He didn't make a fuss out of it anymore because, hey, what's the point? Our set is over, right? So we
Yeah.
finish the set. We go back. We go down the stage. We get outside, and I start trying to talk some sense into him. I wasn't naggy that time, but I
Huh.
was thinking maybe if I am the person I am right now back then, I would have pep talked his ass out like, dude, you can't do shit like that. That's so unprofessional. That is, do you know what kind of image you are trying to project with that kind of attitude, right? So
Huh.
I wasn't able to tell him that, but I wish I did. And then the admin of the bar we were playing in came down, and then that's when shit got real. Well, a fight didn't break out, but you know, he was, or rather, she was pretty upset at him,
Huh.
understandably, right? And he
Huh.
was still drunk, so he's trying to justify why he did that and everything.
Huh.
So you know, I just listened, and I'm like, dude, you deserve that. If she's, you know, if she's upset at you and she's letting out on you, you deserve that because you were very unprofessional. You know,
Huh.
thankfully that didn't happen again. He still drinks, but you know, thankfully that didn't happen again because you know that wasn't a nice experience because I didn't want our band to look childish. You know what
Huh.
I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I guess for me, thankfully, that's the worst probably among my experiences being or playing in a band. Yeah.
Wow. That's. And how long did the band last? The longevity of the band. I gotta ask.
Yeah, well,
Or
the
did
band,
you guys
you know,
break up?
we stuck through. We had lineup changes, but the band is still alive today.
Huh.
Although right now, we've been reduced to a three piece. Back then, we were five.
Ooh, interesting.
So a couple of years ago, our vocalist left amicably, I must say. So there wasn't any fight. It's just that you know we also noticed that his heart wasn't in it anymore. And if you have someone like that, he will do a disservice to us, and us as his friends, we're doing a disservice to him because one of the mantras that we've applied in this band, Paraphrenic, that's our band name. We shortened it from Paraphrenic Hostility. We took out the hostility just months ago, so because it's too long. So yeah, but our philosophy has always been before we were bandmates, we started out as friends,
Mm.
and the friendship part always is comes first. Correct,
Comes
correct.
first.
So
Interesting.
so for us, you know, we had no problem letting him go because if he wasn't happy with what he's doing, then it would be unfair for him
Yeah.
if we force him to keep doing vocal duties for us. So he left.
Interesting.
And then I think sometime last year, our bassist left too. Same reason. I think his heart wasn't in it anymore. So yeah, right now we are down to three. Yeah,
Hmm.
but we're still alive.
3 piece. That's
Uh-huh.
what was the original lineup? What were the instruments? I don't really know the names. But
Yeah. Okay.
what was the
So
lineup like? What was the setup?
our vocalist, his name is Kevin.
Hmm.
We had two guitarists. One is Ron. The other one is Brian.
Huh.
We had a bassist. His name is Jerome, and there's me behind the kit. Right now, it's just me, Ron, and Brian. So Ron has taken over vocal duties.
Hmm.
So yeah. So right now we don't have a bassist. That's the problem too. So with our latest recording, what we did was we split bass duties between ourselves. So I played bass for a couple of tracks. Ron played bass for a couple of tracks. Bri played bass for a couple of tracks. So, but for gigs, we don't have a bassist yet. But then again, there's no gigs right now, right? So, so yeah.
Makes sense. But
there.
wow, that's interesting. Two musicians just connected. It's
Yeah.
just fascinating.
You know,
But
musician talk is always good.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But before we get into this meat and bones of our conversation, I also want to talk about business. Folks, we're gonna have a short break, and we'll be right back after these few short messages. See you in a while.
This is Mike and Ham from Please Pause. Meron kaming munting podcast where we talk about all things TV and film. And despite that, surprisingly, we are still married.
Control freak ka kasi sa podcast na to.
30 seconds lang po ang meron tayo. Pakibilisan.
From blockbusters to classics, superheroes to love teams, hit series to teleseries, join us as we have meaningful and meaningless conversations on the stuff we watched. Someday, mababago ka rin ang tagline na yan.
Check out Please Pause on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms.
See you there!
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm here with my guest Joal Eduarte, and we were talking about music on the first half of the conversation, and it's been a crazy conversation. Yeah, and I gotta say that we've been jamming for the past few minutes, so it's pretty interesting.
You always click.
And, yeah.
Musician to musician talk.
Yeah.
It always clicks.
Yeah, the funny part of this conversation, after all of the things that I heard from you, is that you're a drummer,
Yes.
and when I used to perform, I'm a bass player.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
it's the relativity of our groove. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, right? The drummer and the bassist they're always the partners, right?
True,
the
true.
backbone.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this. Bryken Diao, Ike's Reyes.
Mhm.
We've had a lot of interesting conversations. Yeah, and this is an
Yeah.
amazing conversation. So yeah, so let's wrap up the music segment of this conversation. Let's get into entrepreneurship, business entrepreneurship. And you mentioned you're making side hustle and businesses.
Yes.
How is that going, pal? How is that? How does the interest of business develop?
Okay, I think that my interest in building businesses came from my previous job. So for 2 years, from 2018 up until 2020, I was a producer for for a company called Street Park Productions.
Interesting.
Now they've transformed into Dragon's Nest. But basically, what that company does is it produces shows for CNN Philippines, and one of those shows is called The Final Pitch. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so basically, The Final Pitch is a business reality TV show. It combines think Shark Tank meets The Apprentice. Okay, so we have entrepreneurs, mostly startups, pitch their businesses to a group of investors made up of some of the best and the brightest in Philippine business, right? So we in previous seasons we had Joe Magsaysay, who is the head of Potato Corner. We had William Chulim, who is the head of Mega Sardines.
Interesting.
Right? We had who else? We had Michael Dargani, who is the head of Baskin and Robbins Philippines. We had a lot. We had a lot of investors. We had Victor Consunji. We had George Rieka of Angkas,
Mm.
right? So yeah, so basically these are all decorated businessmen, business people, and as as a producer for that show, I guess that's where I grew into the idea of, you know what, maybe it would be great to start a business.
Mm.
I found business models to be interesting whenever the contestants were pitching their businesses. I always gravitated towards the idea that, wow, you can make a business out of this. You can make money out of this. And their businesses are so creative, they're so good. And I guess that's where it came from. Producing a show, producing 3 seasons of that show,
Mm.
helped me, how do you call this, helped me get into the groove of starting my own business, right?
Mm. Interesting.
So I consider that job to be somewhat of a blessing because it opened my eyes to what can be possible. What else can I do, right? Before that, I came into that company just knowing about video production stuff. Professionally, that was my forte, and I came out of it having a growth mindset and a business mindset, and I'm very thankful for that. I will always credit that company, that show, with forming that kind of mindset within me. That, you know what, I would like to start my own business. I would like to be an entrepreneur as well. I would like to be an advocate of the growth mindset too. And yeah, so I guess that's where I started getting interested in the idea of starting my own businesses.
That's cool. That's interesting. I mean, in times like this, I think that's the only second option that people choose nowadays, where everybody wants to leave the
Mm-hmm.
rat race and move on, and it's a challenge. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that you're taking that leap is a good thing, and it's interesting. And usually, if people think about it, they do things, they plan things. And for
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I admit that I plan and I
Yeah.
do things. I have a paranoia and fear when it comes to planning and
Yeah.
things and execution, and it's really hard. I mean, it's a lot of hard
Mm-hmm.
work. Um, I want to connect one question, of course, in the time span that you've spent in music. Have you carried some certain discipline from music, and you've taken that and you integrated it into your business life by any
In the
chance?
business. Yeah. Um, I wouldn't say it's a discipline because when it comes to the disciplines that are required to start a business, I consider myself still in the stage where I'm learning and growing those habits, those kinds of disciplines. But one thing that I was able to let's say import
Hmm.
from music to business is the idea of passion. I've always
Hmm.
been, whenever I play, I don't play something just because I have to. I don't play something just because I am required.
Hmm.
I play something because I enjoy it. And especially for us, because another thing about bands like us that is always asked is, do you make money off of your gigs?
Hmm.
There are a lot of bands that, yes, they do make a lot of money. They get paid for gigs. we
Hmm.
we don't get paid for gigs. So we consider ourselves lucky if we do get paid for gigs.
Hmm.
But in the many years that I've played for bands, you know, I don't even remember the last time we got paid for a gig. But we do it anyway because we enjoy it. It's our passion. And I guess that same passion, that same level of passion, is something that I've brought in to my becoming an entrepreneur, my becoming a
Interesting.
business.
Hmm.
At this point, I haven't launched yet my business. Right now, as we're talking, I haven't launched it yet.
Hmm.
I guess. Well, I'm not gonna say I guess. By the time that this airs, I would have launched my business. But in building a business, you have to have that passion as well.
Hmm.
You can't build a business just to make money. You can't build a business just because you want to get rich. I mean, of course, in any business, it's one of the goals to become profitable.
Mm.
But how are you going to sustain a business if you don't really enjoy it? How are you going to do that if
Makes sense.
it's not your passion, right? So you have to find something that you're passionate about, I believe, and then start a business from there, or at least, at the very least, something that interests you.
Mm.
Because if it interests you enough, and you start to learn it, you start to learn the ropes of the business that you're trying to build, eventually you get into it to such a level that you will be able to share with your customers, with your potential customers, with your audience, those learnings. You will be able to apply those learnings in coming up with, let's say, a product, right? And then you can serve a lot of customers who are in need of your services or products. So I guess it's really important that you are passionate about the business. I think it's important that you are passionate about the process, the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, because becoming an entrepreneur is hard. It's not easy, right?
I do agree.
There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. You have to dedicate a lot of time, a lot of effort, and sometimes there are things that one of the things that I learned also in the final pitch is there sometimes in business you have to do things that you don't enjoy. You have to do things that you'd rather not do. Maybe the housekeeping or something. I mean, for me, I don't particularly enjoy housekeeping, but I have to learn it. And the thing that keeps me going, despite that, is the big why. Which is motivated by my passion as well. I think that's where the passion kicks in. For example, if I stop being passionate about music, I think it's time to call it quits, because I can't play something that I don't enjoy, right? I'm just going to be bullshitting myself, and I don't want that.
I agree.
Right? Same goes with starting a business. How are you going to start a business without any passion in you? You can't, right? Because the moment that things go downhill, what are you gonna do if you don't have passion? You're going to find it more difficult to keep pushing, keep fighting to help your business resurface.
True.
And that's where the passion is going to come in. So yeah, I think the importance of passion is something that I've learned from my days as a musician, and now I'm applying it here as I'm treading the path of an entrepreneur.
Interesting. This is interesting. That's powerful stuff. I mean, I gotta admit it.
Thank you.
The transition from music into business was really interesting. It went from high energy to a
Yeah.
nice mellowing down, and I love the storytelling
Hey,
on
I
this
mean,
one.
it's music, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And before we end this conversation, I gotta ask: do you have a particular mantra, motto, quotation that you live by every day when you wake up? You've carried it from your time as a musician, or a time as as a businessman, or anything that's carried you through from the transitional period, or in life. I mean, what's your quotation for life? Bruce Lee quotation, anything, musician's quotation that you have, or a quotation that you have that you remind yourself, I gotta do this, and you want to sustain life and make life worth living. Do you have that kind of quotes?
Well, quotes for me are a dime a dozen, right? So they come and go. But I think with all the quotes, all the books that I've read, all the lessons that I've learned over the years, what I can say is that I truly believe that you have, when it comes to self growth,
Yeah.
when it comes to being the best of yourself, you have to respect your pace. You have to respect that, okay, I'm going at this pace, and others who are my age, others who are at my level might be going faster, but hey, that's their pace, and you have to respect yours. It's not about getting to the top the fastest. Probably, maybe you can quote me on this. Life is not a race, it's a marathon. Probably that. I don't know who said that. I don't know if anyone in history has said that, but I just thought of that from my head just right now. But the point is, I had this stage kasi when I was getting kind of depressed and upset with myself because at my age people my age are getting married, they're having this, they're having that. So there was a point in my life when I was like, what about me? Like, bakit ako hindi pa nakakarating sa ganun, why haven't I reached that point yet? And it used to upset me, but thankfully with support from family, my peers, my girlfriend, different books that I've read, different just a vast amount of knowledge about self-development. I've realized that you don't really have to compare yourself with anybody, because again, people grow at their own pace, and if they go faster than you do, then that's fine, more power to them, but you don't have to compare yourself all the time to them, right? Speaking about business, for example, Colonel Sanders was in his 60s when he started KFC, right? So you can't really tell. I mean, would you say that because he's 60 he doesn't have a chance? You can't tell him that, because now KFC is
you have a
worldwide,
good point.
right?
You have a good point there.
So for me, for example, people my age are getting married. Hey, more power to you guys. Me, I'm not rushing. I can get married later on it, because again, I'm respecting my own pace. I'd rather respect my own pace. I'd rather live my life at my own pace, grow, develop, and some people who are my age are closer to their goals. Some have reached their goals. Good for them, right? More power to them. God bless them. Me, I'm getting there, but I'm not rushing anymore. It's really a freeing feeling when you don't pressure yourself, when you don't compare yourself to others. Na kasi nakarating na dito, dapat ikaw rin. Hindi. No, it doesn't work that way. And life shouldn't work that way. You grow at your own pace, you respect the process, you trust the process, and you will get there. And that to me is one of the most important lessons that I've learned. So yeah, it's pretty deep.
I know.
So
It kind of reminds me of Encore of Jazz. It's got that powerful ending, and it's so powerful. I'd be on. That's how I hear it in this conversation.
But personally, that's actually almost an advocacy for me. I'd like to help people learn that you don't have to pressure yourself. Just respect your own pace, trust the process, and as long as you keep doing it, you know what, progress is progress. No matter how small it is, progress is still progress, and and a little bit of progress goes a long way. And you have to learn how to pat yourself on the back for it and say, hey, good job. It might be a baby step, but hey, a baby step is better than nothing, right? So yeah.
Wow, I'm blown away. I'm blown away from this conversation. This was an unexpected portion of the music that we're grooving onto. I mean, wow. I love the energy and the vibe in this conversation, and how we connected was just
same here, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
So we're in the social media portion of this conversation. If my listeners would want to connect with you on social media, how would they find you on social media, pal?
Okay, so you can also find my podcast, Buhay Banda Diaries, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook and Instagram, just key in Buhay Banda Diaries and will show up. For Twitter, it's a little bit different, at Banda Podcast TH. Yeah, right. So there, and then I don't know if there are people out there who are listening who are interested into screenwriting. So I have my business called Newbie Screenwriters. It's dedicated for the people who want to get into the art of screenwriting, learn more about writing for movies, for TV, And you can follow me at Facebook. You can follow us at Facebook. Just key in Newbie Screenwriters. All right. So, yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
Oh, you know what? Let me plug in my bands too, because we talked about the bands, right? Okay. So for my bands, you can just follow them all on Facebook. So I have free. For the first one, just type in Paraphrenic. That's PARAPHRENIC. Paraphrenic. That's one. The second one is Exitus. EXITUS. And the third one where I play bass is Lavos Beckon. So that's LAVOSBECKON. So find those on Facebook and give us a follow. And stay tuned. Yeah.
Awesome. I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. I mean, it's a huge honor. Hopefully, down the line in the upcoming season, let's get a lot of musicians together and bring in a roundtable conversation. That'd be
Definitely.
interesting.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. Okay.
And I want to thank my guest, Joal Eduarte, for being a part of this conversation. And thank you so much for taking the time off and having this conversation with you. More power to you in your world, and
Thank you,
more
man.
power
Thank
to
you.
you. I'm proud of you, pal. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed this one.
And for those who are tuning in, I hope you picked up a thing or two in this conversation. With that in mind, cheers, folks, and I will see you in the next episode.